Confidentiality in the workplace is rule number 1 in the Book of Etiquette. Not only do employees show customers, clients, and employers some level of common courtesy by protecting their privacy, they also fulfill a legal responsibility to prevent sensitive information from being leaked. Breaches of confidentiality can have catastrophic consequences. Just imagine customer contact details, financial information regarding the organization, or even computer data getting into the wrong hands. It therefore calls for employers to take necessary steps to ensure confidential information is kept exactly that, or the consequences might be unpalatable. How can confidential information in the workplace be preserved and breach avoided? This will dominate the conversation on Nigeria Today. Welcome to the program. I'm Victor Azul. Now, joining me to speak further on work and confidentiality are two well-known public affairs analysts. First is Ahmed Sajo, who is also a former Commissioner for Information and Strategy at Adamawa State. Welcome to the program.
Welcome, my brother.
And also joining us is Jide Ojo. Jide, welcome to Nigeria Today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
All right, let me stay with Jide, starting first with you. What exactly do we mean when we talk about workplace confidentiality?
Well, workplace confidentiality basically is about keeping the official secrets, the secret of the organization's secret. And it's one of the 4 cardinal points of public service. Confidentiality, anonymity, and a couple of others. So it's part of the oath of secrecy that you are sworn to as a public official, not to divulge the official secret of the organization. Recall that there was, before the Freedom of Information Act, there was what is called Official Secret Act, which is a law in Nigeria. But you know, with the coming of Freedom of Information Act, that I think either have been nullified or amended. But the bottom line is that information has to be well managed. Because like you said in the introduction to this discussion, if you mishandle information, it can have catastrophic effect on the organization or even the country. You could see what happened with WikiLeaks some years back when Assange decided to blow the whistle on America, and you know, the American government was embarrassed because these are things that people could not, things that were in the realm of conjecture, that the guy was able to release all of those cables with dates. So America was caught napping. It was very embarrassing, and that's why they declared the guy wanted, and of course he's a fugitive now. So the bottom line is that in public service, you are not there are files that are classified confidential, and it means it has to remain confident. You recall that in time past, before the advent of computer, we used to have confidential secretaries, and confidential secretaries perform the role of, you know, dealing with classified information. That even if you are married, if your husband is affected by what the organization is about to do, as a confidential secretary, you are not supposed to divulge it. Otherwise, it's like somebody two people having a key to a safe. If the safe is broken, it will be traced to the people who have the key. So the secret, official secret of an organization, when it is leaked, look at the one that happened very recently, the president's speech. the last presidential broadcast that was that turned out an error, because eventually what was released by the president was different from what earlier. But if you read the special advisor on public Femi Adesina's article the week that way. He said the culprit was caught. Somebody leaked that to the press. Yes, it was
And
still it was
Work
still
in
being
progress.
worked on, and then when it was released, at the end of the day, some media houses that didn't take caution,
that wanted to break the news,
found themselves embarrassed, because what the president read was not tallying with what they had earlier published, all in the name of wanting to break the news. So we need to hurry slowly in trying to just get, and people do these things, leaking information for different reasons. Some do it for pecuniary interest, some do it for vengeance.
Well, I think we'll come back to why people do these things. Jide, let's put you on hold and get to Ahmed Sajo. Now, I like the fact that we should hurry slowly. But then, how important, Ahmed Sajo, is workplace confidentiality, and does it indeed apply to all organizations, including government?
Let me put it this way. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm still doing a study. My PhD is on Freedom of Information Act in Nigeria, and so I'm doing a lot of study on the disclosure of information and the protection of information. Let me start by telling you that every public officer, especially the public officers, from the president down to whoever, before they assume office, there's an oath of office they take. And in that oath of office, there is a line: I will not disclose information to anybody except as may be necessary for the good governance of the country. So information you release is already defined as may be necessary. The Official Secret Act that was enacted, in the early 1900s, and then was domesticated in Nigeria as an act of parliament in September 1962. Classified, confidential, secret, clearance for you to have certain information going out. And then the Freedom of Information Act of May 2011, which was signed in May 2011 by former President Goodluck Jonathan, came and abrogated quite a number of encumbrances that had to do with the Official Secret Act. But there are certain aspects of this Official Secret Act that are still very, very germane to the argument. For example, no country can afford to say all information about your defense should be made public. That could jeopardize lives, including lives of soldiers in battle, or your security planning should be on the pages of newspaper. Then you are not planning for security, because you are allowing other people to. So these are some of the things, your foreign relations, how you deal with other people. And then, the most classical one, the one we're discussing, the president is preparing to broadcast to the nation. It's a whole process. It's not just something that people wake up and say, look, we're going to do it, because the presidential broadcast is going to affect everybody in Nigeria. So there are processes and there are checks and there are, safeguards to make sure that certain elements are not put in that broadcast that could have counter effect on the original intention, embarrass the government, or even put people into trouble, because the man's pronouncement is weighty. He is the president of the country, for crying out loud, and his statement is very weighty. It could affect the citizens negatively or positively. So it's a work in progress. It has to be analyzed. It has to be properly done. If you release it like that, just a minute. So these are some of the things, but we look at it very critically. Why would somebody want to divulge an information he is not authorized to? Even if it is intended to embarrass somebody. But what does it do to the confidence that the citizens have in a system? And if it is a business entity, what happens to the competition that the business has with another business entity? Again? And so it affects the overall performance, it affects the outcomes, it affects profits if it's in business, it affects the relationship between government and citizens if it is government, and at the end of the day, it jeopardizes the process of benefiting the public.
There seems to be this ambiguity when it comes to defining exactly what information is on that side of confidential information that shouldn't be given out in private sector and in government differently. And so I'll be asking Jide, what are the basic, principles of such confidentiality?
Well, principles guiding confidentiality is, you must be authorized before you release such. Sometimes you keep a particular information secret for a number of years, after which you can declassify. That's why you see, they will say, this information is classified information. It may well be that in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in 100 years, it may be declassified because events will have overtaken, and it may be making it public will no longer have the deleterious effect it will have had if it's prematurely released. And we must also understand the fact that now with Official Secret Act and then the Freedom of Information Act, my big brother here was alluding to the exemption in the Freedom of Information Act, that deliberately the National Assembly put some clauses that you cannot request and be given such information. There are exemptions, issues around defense, foreign affairs, security, and all the others. So it tells you this particular information under no guise should it be declassified or should anybody. But you now see that what is currently playing out, which actually led to the memo, the circular by the head of service of the Federation, Dr. Mrs. Folashade Yemi Eson, recently, was that you now find something that should be classified information on social media. In fact, beyond the recent past, I recall that the memo sent by Dr. Ibe Kachuku to the president concerning 25 billion contract in NNPC found its way to the media. And nobody was sure how this came to be. Several other correspondence to the president was, in fact, if you recall, during the twilight of former President Goodluck Jonathan, when incoming President Buhari called him, somebody from the presidential villa leaked the telephone conversation to the media. And it was so embarrassing. So the point is that some information will be deemed classified for a period of time. Under that gestation period, if it has not matured, you must have higher authorization in writing. In writing, not even verbal, because somebody can deny, I gave you permission to. It must be in writing to say, yes, release this information. And it must be, that order must be from the person who has the appropriate power and authorization to give.
All right, Jide, let's hold it here. It's getting very much interesting, really, but we have to run along now for a quick message. Nigeria Today returns shortly.
The number of the COVID-19 cases in Nigeria is increasing daily, with many more tests ongoing. The battle of testing, isolating, treating, and attending to the affected persons rests heavily on the shoulders of our health workers, constantly putting their lives on the line and at risk to contain this virus, save and protect the lives of millions of Nigerians. To these health workers, we at the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, on behalf of millions of Nigerians, say a big thank you for all that you have done and are doing. To the security agencies enforcing the lockdown and every other frontliner, we say thank you for putting your lives on the line to save ours. There is no amount of words that can quantify our gratitude. Thank you. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Right, we're still on to Nigeria today, where we have been discussing work and confidentiality with public affairs analysts Ahmed Sajo and Jide Ojo. Now, let me get back to Ahmed Sajo. Aside from employee trust, is there any other way of preventing a breach of confidentiality in a workplace?
Yeah, there are many ways, and one of them is actually, effective data management. In the olden days, what they do is that every file that moves from every office to the other has a register, an in register and an out register. At any point in time, there's a leakage you can trace. This was when, work ethics were adhered to. You were talking about ambiguity about which message to go out and which one not to go out. The truth about life is that in most cases, processes are confidential. It's outcomes that are known to people. Because if every process that you undertake, you share it with people, sometimes if there are people who do not want the process to lead you to the outcome that is wanted, they can sabotage it, they can block it. So essentially in business and in government, the process that leads to an outcome is something that is internal communication. It's something that should be safeguarded so that nothing goes wrong with the process. And if something goes wrong, the process is realigned. And the whole essence is to achieve trust. The whole essence of confidentiality is to ensure that public trust is maintained. And where you lose public trust, there's nothing that, but you lose a lot more. So in government and in business, the essential thing is to gain public trust. And the only way you can gain public trust is to conduct your processes as an in-house measure and then move over and expose the outcome to the general public, because it's actually done for the benefit of the general public. Okay.
Now, I've been thinking, really, and you two have talked a lot about government, even though we are dealing with, general confidentiality in a workplace, whether private or government. But then I'm wondering, Jide, is government not supposed to be an open book? Is government also really going to keep to these confidentiality rules so deeply, considering that there is a freedom of information law?
Now,
where do we draw the line?
You draw the line from, is this information being sought for public good or for private gain?
How do you define that?
No, it's from the intendment. what is the motive for you request? And you are dealing with official request.
And the motive is not only to the individual requesting. I could tell you it's in public interest, and I'm requesting for my own personal gain.
That is why it is within the discretion of the organization that you are requesting that information from to either accede to your request or decline to give that. And that's why the court is also there as an arbiter. You can go to court to compel the organization if you think this information will be in public. Let me give you an instance. Very recently, SERAP, Socioeconomic Accountability Rights Project in Lagos, actually wrote to Code of Conduct Bureau and said he wants the asset declaration form of all the former president, vice president, governors, deputy governors from 1999. And the Code of Conduct said, you have no right to have access to this confidential document because it is within the principle of the law established Code of Conduct that you cannot make such public except the owner of those asset declaration form decided to do so. The president in 2015 decided to declare his asset of his own accord. Governor Kayode Fayemi, in his first tenure, decided to voluntarily declare his assent. For late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua voluntarily declared his assent. But now, compelling an agency of government to not give you assent declaration form of people who have held public office, the CCB declined, and citing constitutional provision which backs it not to declare such. And so, but what we are dealing with as is people leaking. Now, if you are requesting for an information using the Freedom of Information Act, you will cite the relevant section of that act that is enabling you to make that request. And it must be within the principle of what has not been classified, what has not been declared as classified information, for which you cannot divulge. But where the problem with what the head of service to the federation is talking about is not actually people making official requests for information and being given or being denied. It's about people who work in government offices who deliberately, for either pecuniary purposes or for vengeance or to embarrass government, would leak an official document to the media. And not even traditional media who can exercise some level of discretion of whether to publish, to use or not. I don't imagine you as a Nigeria Television Authority now getting a breaking news that you cannot verify and running with it. But those who are in private business who wants to make money will run with it irrespective of whether they get confirmation or not. Recall very recently, last week or there about 2 weeks, last week when the new chief of staff was appointed. It started as a rumor mill on Tuesday. By 10 a.m., the rumor mills have already gained. President Buhari has already appointed Professor Gambari as the new chief of staff. But there was no official confirmation until the following morning at the Federal Executive Council. But the rumor mill has already gained ground. Now, somebody leaked that information. Now, the president could have changed his mind to between that time that the rumor mill gained ground to now appoint somebody. How will it now be? It can cause ethnic tension.
All right, Jide, let's hold you there. Ahmed Sajo, what then should be the consequence or consequences of leaking such confidential information?
Well, first let us put a premise to it. You see, institutions, government or public institutions are custodians of public good. And whenever you at any point in time you compromise the confidentiality of an institution, you are actually, affecting public good negatively.
All right, I'm told I have just 10 seconds
left. But the consequences is that, like I said, if we had kept data on the movement of confidential information, at any point in time we can pin where it leaked, and the punishment should be meted.
All right.
Without punishment, without sanctions, this will continue. But once there are sanctions in place, then it can be taken care of.
All right, Jido Joe, I've run out of time completely. I give you my last 10 minutes. Your final thoughts.
My final thought is the government has issued a circular which must be strictly adhered to. We should stop embarrassing our government by leaking information.
What about the private sector?
Even the private sector, as a worker, you must abide by the rules and regulations. For public service, there is what is called general order. That you are all given a copy of the general order. You read, you digest as a public servant. But for private organization, you have in your contract what you are supposed to do, what you are not supposed to do. Anyone who breaches risk losing his or her job.
And I think we are not embarrassing our government. We are actually embarrassing ourselves as a people.
All right, Jido Joe, public affairs analyst, thank you for coming on Nigeria Today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And an equal measure of thanks will go to Ahmed Sajo,
Thank you.
A former commissioner of information and strategy at Adamawa State, also a public affairs analyst. Many thanks for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
Now, Nigeria Today is live every weekday at 7:30 in the evening, and you can watch this and other editions of the program on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Victor Azo. Thank you for watching.